Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome Eric Miro joining in on phone. Good to have you here. Cool. Are we live? Fantastic. Thanks so much, James. So welcome everybody. Good to see you, Eric. This is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. And this week, we're looking at connections, networking, and want to talk a little bit about that. But I want to remind everybody that we're here to serve you, that whatever question you have on your heart, anything career related is fair game. So it doesn't have to do with the topic. There's no question too small, no question too big. We often have people join in over the course of a few weeks as they dig into the questions that they have. We have people who jump in just once because they need a quick tidbit, a little bit of support in negotiating or something like that. So anything, your payment is that you're sharing here and it's serving other people as people are viewing in through LinkedIn Live and through YouTube. And for those of you on LinkedIn Live and YouTube, you're welcome to ask questions. Of course, I love it when you jump in here directly on the Zoom. We can work with you easier, more directly that way, get more information from you. But if you're unable to, totally understand. Put your questions into the comment section. Jane will get those questions over to us. We'll do our best to get to those. If we don't, we often circle back around and we'll answer those in the comment section afterwards. You can take a look there. Welcome, Aaron. Good to have you. And Daniel, welcome as well. So, as we're looking at connections, I'll say a little bit about this. In our research, what we found is there's 6 phases to living a transformative, flourishing life. And I'm not going to go through all of those right now, but something that really strikes me is that the first 2 phases are yearning and engaging. And this engaging piece is something a lot of times people will reach out and want to know what the right thing for them to do is. And in order for us to get to knowing what the right thing for us to do, we often need to first engage and get more data and try things out in ways that perhaps we haven't before. And pay attention to now that the first phase of yearning. And so that's really where our deep hungers, our deep needs, our deep yearnings, longings, dreams, visions come from, that thing that we all have. It's a universal language, our yearning. And so we often want people to get familiar with their own sense of themselves, their own yearnings that they have, and then to engage in the world around them to get more important data, because we're often so trained to just stay in our heads and look at things analytically and forgetting about what's really important deep in our hearts. And there's research that shows that at the end of people's lives, when asked, what do you really wish you had done differently? Or is there anything that you wanted? And a lot of people say something like, I wish I had shared how I really felt. I wish people really knew how I felt about things. I think that's pretty interesting. Not saying that all the logical stuff isn't important, but this can really bring more meaning and sense of purpose into someone's career. And as Dr. Gordon Medlock, who's not joining us today, he often says that he sees career as the pathway or vessel for us to reach our potential. And I think that's a beautiful framework to be going at your career in. So with saying all of that, in networking with people, finding out what people really care about, what matters to them, that is an important part of networking. And learning about yourself and sharing what really matters to you, the things that you have on your heart. And that kind of is like the glue that often brings more connection, more depth to the interactions. And I think this is really important stuff to be getting into over the holidays, because we're going to be seeing a lot of friends and family members. And it's like, how do you want to take that conversation a little deeper and talk about something that really matters to you? I'm just putting that out there as the vision as we're going into our holiday time here. And with all of that said, I would like to open the floor up to anybody who's got any questions. Would love to hear from you. You can type into the chat, or even better yet, come off mute and let us know what you're working on. And Tushar, we were speaking briefly before, right before we went live. Is there, can you fill us in a little bit on what you're working on?
So, George, for the benefit of all the colleagues here who are here, see, I moved from Middle East after a gap of good 18 years working in Middle East. Worked with the same organization for practically 18 years. Out of 22 years of experience, same organization for 18, worked in India, Middle East, Europe. And I have come here to Canada, and I'm taking giving myself this 4-5 months, 6 months time where not just settling down the family, but this is the important time where I'm trying to look at my career, which direction to take it, what kind of roles, what kind of industry to focus on. While on one side, I started my career very much into commercial side, commercial sales roles. But as the career progressed, I was more into senior managerial roles, where managing the whole P&L for the business. So did transformational jobs, did change organization jobs, many times part of mergers and acquisitions. So a lot of things, exciting things has been done. And I was talking to the guys in Deloitte. I told them that I don't have the experience directly in consulting, but part of the transformation thing that you guys are looking at, I've done it. So sometimes having that clarity within my mind is to sometimes I feel, yes, I'm very clear what I want to do, but many a times it comes that no, I still want to figure out, I still want to read, want to network, talk to people to get a clarity. So that's a little bit of hard part in my opinion, George.
Okay. So you know personally what you want to do, but you're not quite sure where you want to do it?
Yes.
Okay. And so you're in the stages now where you're networking and discovering that it with the companies and people and companies that you're talking to.
Yes.
Okay.
While at the same time, I don't like the thin line to draw there is when we are networking with people, we don't want to sound that we are desperate for a job. No, I'm looking at a career where I can spend next 10-15 years with the same organization as I did in the past 18 years. So for me, it's also a selection of that organization, but then selection of the role or the business unit that I will be going in. That's also equally critical.
Well, Tushar, what questions could you be asking to find out about a company and really investigate if it's a place where you want to spend 10 to 15 years?
See, for me, the more importantly is the company's values, their goal, and kind of industry or the segment that they serve. When we talk about that, it gives a clarity. Specifically,
what are the values that are important to you?
See, specifically when the values around integrity, if you ask me, integrity and diversity, if the company is focusing a lot, when you go,
what does integrity mean to you?
Integrity for me is all about how serious are you in committing to the customers, to your employees? How serious are you in driving that this thing? So many companies would talk a lot on theory or their values and these things, but while we look at their articles, when you look at the industries that they are serving, the products they are serving, the directions, if you look at the LinkedIn pages, you will see they go in a completely different direction versus what they talked about. Like in Ingersoll Rand specifically, where I worked for, there's a lot of emphasis on the value around employee engagement. They really, the employees are at the core focus, which is there. And being a part of the leadership team, I can tell you, there are lots and lots of efforts that goes when it comes to the engagement of the employees. Specifically, somewhere in October, November, when the results are out, next 2 months really goes that every single leadership team would make a specific plans and drive the engagement of the team. In my opinion, if the engagement team is engaged, employees are engaged, you can make sure that the whole team will follow you. All the plans will succeed, but as long as that engagement is there, it's good. So I try to look at those things specifically when I talk to the people. And if you're talking to the hiring manager or to a senior director level, this thing, and when you talk and ask them the questions around what are the expectations of the role, many times the employees will talk about the business, the numbers, the expectations, which segment, which sector. There are very few people actually will start talking about employees and the team. that also gives you a good reference how serious that organization, or perhaps that organization is serious, perhaps that business unit or the leader is serious about it.
Okay. So it sounds like that you know the questions to ask, and you're in the process of doing that. Are you currently talking to companies?
Yeah.
And are you narrowing down the ones that you think are walking the talk?
I would say out of 10, 15 good companies that I reached out in the last 7, 8 days, I would say from my shortlist, there are at least 2 organizations which have been shortlisted from my side.
Okay, cool. Now, another question I have is, from my experience, there's a lot of company. I don't think any company is perfect and is totally there yet. And so another angle is, how open is the company to continued learning and growing themselves? And, is that going to be part of your role as they hire you on, is to say, we want to use you and your fresh insights and your ability to see the problems in our organization. As you come on, we want to make sure we make good use of that, and to set yourself up that way. Is that something that you're talking with them about?
So yes, George, most of the discussions will always start with tell me about yourself or what brought you here. These are the common questions that starts, and in my answers to that, there is one point which is always core, because that has been the reality with me. I owe my career, my success to Ingersoll Rand. This company has given me the opportunity to learn, earn, and grow. These are the 3 things. And I very specifically, when I'm talking and engaging with the new companies, I emphasize on this point is, I'm fine if there is a couple of percentage point compromise on financial package. But if these 3 things are there, I know that that package can always be overcome. As long as the 3 things are there, when the environment is good for learning, when the opportunities are there to grow, earning will definitely follow. That's what I always say that. And specifically, I always set that as my expectations when I talk to the company.
Okay, that sounds good. I didn't quite get the connection though. Are you, in terms of asking them if part of what they're wanting is for you to help transform the organization?
So no, I'm not getting this point, George, from you. I didn't get this point from you. I didn't understand.
Okay. Well, so that's one thing I'm bringing up as a possibility, is that in talking to a company to also get a sense of how much are they looking to be open to changes. We're in a time where there's a lot of change happening, and
Yes.
is that part of? Are you going to be part of that?
So there are specific roles in the organizations where they are talking about transformational roles, or perhaps there are roles which are there with a specific time bound and a specific deliverables.
Mm-hmm.
So if those are the roles are open in terms of this thing, it's very clear to have that expectation set right, because as long as that mindset is there for that change, that can happen or that can be delivered. If the mindset is not there for the change, then perhaps it will never happen. So those are the candid questions, perhaps I would say, need to be asked and needs to be engaged. And wherever I get the opportunity, perhaps not in the first engagement, in the second or third engagement, I would like to go for it. But if I do that in the first attempt, might not be sure whether it will be taken correctly or not. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So you're building the rapport with them. I think it's, I want everybody, part of what Tushar is talking about, working on here, is core to what we teach at Right about interviewing and approaching a job, is that you are the interviewer. When you're going in and being interviewed, the way for you to have the most success and to set yourself up in the interview, the most success in the interview, and to set yourself up for success at the job, is that you are interviewing them. You're finding out about the company, what the problems are that they're hiring you for, and if that's something that you're really interested in, and is it the kind of culture that you want, et cetera, et cetera. And so too often people go in just wanting to talk about what they've done, why they're qualified for it. And that does not nearly as well as you being curious about them. And Tushar is looking at, 10, 15 years, wanting a real relationship with a place. And that, I mean, in 10 and 15 years, think about the past 10 and 15 years and how much the world has changed. So looking forward to the next 10 and 15 years and being like, wow, if I'm going to be at a company, I mean, there's all kinds of challenges that we know are going on. And wow, what kind of place am I going to be at where it's going to transform me? The organization's probably going to be transformed, and I'm going to be a part of something really exciting and beautiful. And I'm going into this job. And this is the thing that we talk about having as that kind of, I call it yak butter from a book I read years ago, but that warm, excited feeling inside of, I am so excited to step into this job. I'm scared, and I think it's going to be an amazing adventure. And so to kind of tee that up and know at the beginning, and to have yourself saying, wow, I am more excited about this job opportunity than I have been about the ones all in my past. And I've had a great career, and I'm so honored that I get to move on at this point in my career with a company and a project that really excites me. That's the North Star. That's what we want to have you moving towards. And so, Tushar, as you're engaging in networking, for you to get that sense while you're talking to people and at the companies, and like, oh wow, this seems really interesting, and to know that that's your North Star, that's what you do want to be going for, and to be paying attention to. Now, the other piece of our curriculum is emotional intelligence, and really paying attention to the concerns that you have, the fears, anything that doesn't seem quite right, to investigate that, be really curious about it. Places where you might feel hurt, that feeling, that core feeling of like something's off in that way, and really allowing yourself to say, I don't like how that happened. I need to find out more about it. And using your core emotions as a tool, as opposed to trying to numb them out and saying like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine, or I don't need to worry about that right now, but really allowing yourself to be intuitive.
Yes.
Well, Tushar, thank you for sharing that. I want to open up the floor to everybody. If you're just joining in on Career Lab Wednesday, and if you're on LinkedIn or YouTube Live, you're welcome to type your questions in there. Better yet, if you can, jump over in on Zoom and we can talk with you directly. And I thank you, Tushar, for sharing with everybody. I want to give a quick check-in. Joe, good to see you here. I know that some of our folks are coming over to Hawaii, and so I'm especially thinking of you now and want to hear how you're doing.
Thanks, George. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think they're coming to Hawaii, but my understanding is going to be on the Big Island, so they'll be on a different island, not in my jurisdiction.
Oh, gotcha.
But, appreciate them coming over here, and if they need any assistance on a Big Island, I can talk to individuals over there. But yeah, great opportunity, great understanding. I think Tashir was spot on trying to decide. He knows what he wants to do, but now he's looking for the right company and to find that career, and that's extremely important. I mean, when I was looking at 2 years ago, when I was looking to branch out and find something new before this came upon me, but I looked at different organizations and I checked off the ones I didn't want to work for, because it's not that I didn't like them. It's just that I didn't think they had the same value set that I wanted. And so I wanted to look for the company that had, the values and principles that I believe in. And so that's why I am where I am today, because of that. But so I think that's extremely important. And you got to do a lot of research. You got to look at the company, talk to people that work there, find out from other employees what what value sets they have, and look at their mission statement and their vision statement, and that'll tell you a lot about a company that you're looking at in this career field that you're trying to decide to do.
Right on, Joe. Thank you. And I like what you're saying, and I'm thinking about too what Tushar was sharing about companies can put out a good message, and then to find and really be curious about where the challenges are. If somebody's coming to me for an interview and all they're telling me is good stuff, I get kind of increasingly suspicious. So if I'm talking to a company and all they're telling me is good stuff, I'm going to get increasingly suspicious. It's like, no, why are you hiring me? What are the challenges here that you need addressed? And to find that out, I worked with a woman who was invited to kind of her dream company, but there was some things going on that company that got pretty public that they weren't so proud of. And so she kind of knew she was walking into a shitstorm. But the important thing that she got to in it was that the key leadership knew it, was honest about it, and wanted to make a difference. And they were hiring her as part of that. And so she was able to negotiate things the way that she really wanted them to be for her. It just that before she was even hired. And so to really have that kind of sense of, I'll tie it back to your word, Tushar, personal integrity, what you really value, and making sure that the people that you're going to be working with are valuing that or wanting to value it more.
Yeah, and you express that in the first interview. And if you don't get a second or third, then that company wasn't somebody you wanted to work for. So, I mean, it's right up front. You give them everything you got right up there in the front, and you tell them who you are and why you're doing this and what you want to do and how you want to impact the company. And then you go from there. If they value you, they'll give you a second interview. If they don't, or they don't have the right values, then maybe they'll second guess you. And then that tells you, okay, maybe that company or organization was not the one for me.
Yeah. So, George, one point which Joe mentioned was around the research. So part of it is also about the company, but also a big part of it also goes to the leadership team where you're going to report into, or the division that you're going to report into. Because I would say the senior leadership team will always try to follow. They will be ethical. They will have those values. The connect will be there. The HR leadership will also have it. But then you may end up working in a division. Perhaps your leadership or the immediate manager there might not be as ethical or as this thing. So sometimes a little bit of research around the reporting lines, if you go to the next stage there or in the last stage, it's also important.
That is great. Thank you, Tushar, for sharing that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Able to find that in a large organization and find out what's going on in where you would be at.
Yep.
Fantastic. And yes, and Eric, I see you've got something you want to share. Totally. Jump on in, Eric. And this is free flowing and open for everybody who hasn't been here before. Eric, great to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I know it's funny you mentioned emotional intelligence. I know that's been a topic of these chats a lot, not only understanding from a broad perspective, but understanding your own emotional intelligence and understanding. And I had a screening interview recently where a lot of what has been talked about here, I think really came in handy for me, not only taking control of the situation, but succeeding in it. So I had a screening interview for a role, and this interviewer, they knew what they wanted. They had very high standards, and they were not afraid to call you out on things if they thought they were flaws. And I guess put it succinctly, they were not afraid to mince words. So as you can imagine, it's there's quite the shock when you first are experiencing something like that. So I had my own kind of emotions under control myself. I knew my story. I knew kind of ahead of time what flaws they were going to point out and how to address those and some other questions that came up. And ended up getting to the point where kind of through a series of questions, basically straight up told me that they were going to recommend me to move on within the process. I ended up withdrawing for that role for personal reasons, but I just thought it was probably one of my best interviews I had with probably one of the hardest interviewees that I've encountered in a good while. And I think a lot of it comes from these discussions, especially around emotional intelligence and, not only what you and Dr. Medlock are talking about, but also just hearing from other folks' perspectives and how they handle their own emotional intelligence and what they've learned dealing with that.
Eric, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. That makes me feel really good to hear how you're applying that, how you're able to stay with your feelings more in a challenging interview and able to get the valuable data from that and to feel good about yourself. That's another North Star that we set for
Right.
people, is even if you don't get the job, but to come out of the interview being like, I did really well. I'm proud of how I did that. And then, to reflect on anything like, oh, you know what, I could have done that better, but not have it go into the, sometimes, especially for those of you, when you don't actively have a job and you're searching, it is really intense. And it's really hard to come out of an interview and not beat yourself up. And so to be aware of that and say, okay, I'm proud of these things I did well. I felt afraid during these questions, but I liked how I answered them. I knew I was prepared, and I was able to sense more too, because I allowed myself to feel the fear. I was able to sense their concerns more and be in better rapport with them, and to be proud of that, and then say, okay, and some of these other things I still need to work on. But I'm so glad you're sharing that, Eric. That's awesome.
Yep.
Good stuff. And that actually, I'll tee up. We have an event tomorrow evening. Jillian Eichel, one of my colleagues, is going to be leading that. It's a deeper dive into the social and emotional intelligence stuff that we work with beyond positive thinking. And I love this. It's one of the reasons I work at Right Foundation. In a lot of the personal growth land, you'll look at just the positive stuff, positive psychology. Well, that would be great, but there's also the negative stuff in life. There is the challenging things. When people talk about, oh, just have a mantra and focus on what you want and you'll manifest it. Well, they're not taking into account all of the limiting beliefs that we have, and that oftentimes, if I'm telling myself, okay, get that mansion that you want, the unconscious message that I'm telling myself in that is, George, you're a piece of shit. George, you don't have that. You're not good, George. And so to be aware of that unconscious negative thought and how to actually use it to be more effective in your communications. That's what Jillian Eichel is leading people into tomorrow evening. So take a look at that. It's a great thing. And for the deeper dive into emotional intelligence that we do for coaches, therapists, lawyers, anybody who's wanting CEUs, and anybody who's wanting to deepen their skill set in emotional intelligence, we have the More Life training January 6th through 8th. So to kick off your new year, that is something that to go deep into learning about your social and emotional intelligence. It's a fantastic event, and you get lots of exercises and engagement with people. So thank you, Eric. Thanks for teeing that up and checking in with us on that and sharing your successes. Well, so this is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. We take all questions career related. We're talking about connection today. And Janet, I did see your question in the chat about connecting with employees on LinkedIn while doing the research. Are you available to say more or share more? And I get it if you got to run in a second too.
I can for a few minutes.
Okay, great. So Janet,
You
say
can tell the
more.
good news. You heard the good news yesterday. You can share the good news because nobody here knows yet.
Woo, third round interview.
And what did I get yesterday?
Tell
What did
me.
I get on Monday? The job offer.
Yeah. Yes. Nice. Congratulations, Janet. That's fantastic.
And I can definitely say that the stinking thinking templates, the more life training, and the year of more I've been working through right now has actually helped me in my job hunting process.
How so?
Because it's making me look more at myself as to the bottom line as to why. Why am I thinking that? What triggers do I have that make me go into an interview with the fear and the I need to prove myself when they are already interested in me? So why? And where I would bumble up. As a matter of fact, when I went to the first interview for this position, I actually told the guy I had just started a social and emotional intelligence course.
Uh-huh.
And we talked about that a little bit and how that has been helping me. And we talked about, because I have a Six Sigma, I have a yellow belt in Six Sigma. And we even talked about that and how I can help contribute to the team in the in some of the project management roles and pick up some of the slack on. And then I discussed the same things with his boss. And my third interview was with one of my future teammates. And his first question to me was, "Tell me about Janet outside of work."
Cool. Uh-huh.
So I told him that, hey, this is what Janet loves to do when she's not at work. I love to learn. I love to explore things, books, movies, reading, and stuff like that. He goes, "Oh, you are so going to fit in with this team."
Oh, Janet, that's great. Super, super congratulations. And I wanted to check and see is so we haven't talked. Is it something that you're do you think you're going to take it?
I'm taking it.
Okay.
I have this job is like the growth potential within the company itself. The fact that they actually invest in this is a multi-billion-dollar national company that I'm going to be going to work for. And the fact that they care about their employees, that the manager actually schedules every other month because everybody's virtual right now, and every other meet and greet, every other month meet and greet, so that the employees can get together in person and connect and everything. Oh my God. The fact that the lady's like, we'll even help you learn some more on LinkedIn. The fact that they're willing to engage because I love learning. Oh my God. I couldn't ask for a better employer. And it also kind of serves my need to have that peace and quiet I need sometimes at work where I need to concentrate and not get disturbed by it.
Yeah. Oh my God. I got some tears, Janet. I'm so happy to hear this. This is just fantastic. And this is what we want in going into a new position where you have that like deep sense of yes, like this is what I want.
Well, I
And
already told the guy by the third interview, I said, I want to be your teammate. I just want to come and work with you. Can I come and work with you? And the guy's like,
oh,
yes.
beautiful, 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 Janet. That's great to hear. And what some of the things, that you mentioned, I want to give context to everybody. So the term stinking thinking, it actually comes, I think it comes from AA. And what that is cognitive distortion. So where the data set that is coming into me is that things are going well, or people are curious about me. But for whatever reason, however I've been wired, my belief system growing up or whatever, has me interpret that as there's something wrong. So it's kind of like my fear receptors are a little out of whack. And so there's a stinking thinking template. We could call it a cognitive distortion template that we use at Right Foundation that helps people identify what's really going on, identify their deeper yearnings, identify what they really want to say to people, and remove or get clarity from the cognitive distortion. So I am so happy to hear, Janet, that you're using that and that you're getting the results that you're getting. And thank you for sharing with us. It was freaking awesome. Well, everybody, so this is Career Lab Wednesday, every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central. We invite you to join in and share your success stories, share the questions that you have, share what you're working on, and any concerns that you have. There's no question too small, no question too big. People join in week after week, sometimes to work out things, and sometimes it's just a quick 5-minute conversation. I would love to hear from any of our newcomers today. I know you had mentioned you're on listening in, and I'm curious if there's any questions that you have, any ways that we can support you today. And if you're unable to come off mute, you can always type into the chat, and we can work with you there. Okay. Hey, is it Sayar?
Hi, George. Yeah, I was actually about to ask a question, but I'm worried that it's going to come off as like, like a long-winded question. So I'm trying to make sure I phrase it in a concise way. So I guess I feel like I'm at a stage in my career right now where I'm trying to like essentially change what I'm doing entirely. So I guess my question generally is, how do you, what are some tools that maybe people have used to kind of figure out what they actually like to do? Because there might be elements of my job that I like to do, but I kind of am at a point right now where I'm stuck trying to figure that out. So are there any like tools or ways that people have gotten to that, that passion or purpose that they tie to their career? How do people kind of figure that out if they're trying to make a transition?
That's a big question. And I think you actually asked it pretty succinctly, given sort of the enormity of the question.
Yeah.
My first question I would have for you is how long has it been since you kind of knew what you really liked and felt like you were really doing something you like doing?
It's probably been over 10 years, sadly. So that's why I think it's really hard. It's easy to get stuck in that type of mindset where it's like, okay, I don't really like anything that I'm doing. And it's been so long since I have. So it's like, how do you actually get to the root of that with that amount of time?
Are you game to answer some more questions?
Sure. Yep.
And as soon as if there's anything I ask and you don't want to answer it, just that's totally cool. In our trainings, we have this red, yellow, green thing, where green means I'm open, give me coaching all the way. Yellow means I want like a little bit of feedback, but like, I'm pretty tender right now too. And red means I just want to say what I want to say and don't give me feedback. And by the way, sometimes the yellow is actually the more courageous thing to do, because this learning as an adult is painful. This is Jack Mesereau's transformational. Oh, shoot, I forget the book. I know the word transformations in the title, but he says childhood is formation, adulthood is transformation. But one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about is that transformation as an adult, there's going to be pain involved, because it's like, reworking a muscle. If I have scar tissue, I have to break that scar tissue to get the muscle to be able to have the total movement. So as an adult, we have all these ways of thinking. So anyway, I just wanted to give a little context. Sayar before, and is it Sahar or Sayar?
You can call me Sahar. Yeah.
Sahar.
Yeah.
Sahar. Okay, thank you, Sahar. So you mentioned it's been 10 years since you were really doing what you enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that's a good estimate.
Okay. Yeah. And how is it that for 10 years you've let yourself do that?
I think there's probably sprinkles of times in there where I did enjoy pieces or elements of what I was doing. So I think, it just kind of, it was easy to maybe pay attention to those moments and kind of ignore the rest of the things. And I think as the years went by, I think then, the negative started to like outweigh the positive, especially over the last few years. So I think, that when that balance was set off, I think that's when I started to wake up to the fact that there's a trend here. Whereas
Okay.
before, I feel like, since there were some things that I enjoyed in what I was doing, I think particularly when I was working in consulting, it was very fast paced. I was much younger, and I feel like there was elements of that, being in a very fast paced environment, that it's like you are enjoying that, kind of high stress lifestyle because you're also really young, so you can kind of endure it and everything's just kind of fun and new. So I think that period of time, I did have moments where I, enjoyed what I was doing. I think as I got older and I started to pick up on more of the negative aspects of what I was doing, that balance was definitely set off.
Okay.
So,
Now, is ignoring things, do you do that anywhere else in life?
yeah, I sometimes tend to be avoidant of conflict. I think in general with, friendships, relationships, etc. I think that's maybe a natural human tendency I have.
Uh-huh. Is that something that you would want to do less of?
I think I've done a lot better at doing less of that in my friendships, for instance. So I, bring up things that have been bothering me, whereas before I would have never said anything at all and kind of let it breed resentment over time. But I feel like I've gotten much better at bringing up things into the open with friendships recently. So I guess if I can apply that in some way to my career, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, cool. And I mentioned at the beginning or sometime, Dr. Gordon Medlock often refers to our career as a vessel for us to reach our potential in life in general. And so that for you to be sharing more like your concerns and not ignoring the things on your heart or things happening in work meetings, but for you to share more and more in that direction, is that a place that you would want to be working at, where that's kind of expected of you, even if it's a little scary sometimes, but something that's happening?
Yeah, I think so. I think yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to find a working environment that has that. I think I've traditionally worked for larger companies, and it's very kind of professional, and there's things that you can say and things you can't say. And I think it's challenging definitely to find that in a work culture.
Okay. So I think you and Tashar are kind of in similar places in your search.
Yeah.
But what I would challenge you to do, welcome Anna, good to have you. What I would challenge you to do, Sahar, is the limiting beliefs or the cognitive distortions. There's a lot of research on this, and pretty much all of us limit ourselves beyond what we need to. And what often people do when starting our work, and they learn assignments and different ways to engage right where they're at. And so if they're in a career transition, they'll use the transition to try out new things, to say, okay, I've been at this company for 10 years or whatever, and I have gotten into the habit of communicating in ways that aren't really serving me. So I'm going to start tweaking that. And I'm going to start challenging my limiting beliefs about the world and people. And it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to be going outside of my comfort zone. But in this process, I'm going to be learning more and more. I'm going to be getting more data about who I am and what really matters to me. So that's our North Star again. of you, because I suspect that it's been a while and there's ways you don't even know what you really want. And so for you to start discovering that by trying new things, even where you're at now, I'm not saying don't interview at other places, do that too. But for you to challenge yourself right where you're at will give you better data. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So what's one thing you could do differently?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sure. I guess I'm drawing a blank because I'm not seeing the direct connection between like the communication patterns and the original question I was asking about, I guess, finding your passions or what things drive you at work. I'm not seeing the connection between the communication patterns and that original question.
Here,
That's why I'm drawing a blank.
Thanks for saying that. Well, it's a developmental thing. So notice even your language with it, finding a purpose or finding a passion. The purpose and passion comes from within you. And it's not your boss's job or anybody's job for them to create that for you. It can be kind of a partnership thing. But there's when I first started doing this, it was probably 5 years after I started doing like personal growth work and meditation things. I got to a point where I realized I was like, oh my God, I'm 30 years old and I don't know what I want. I've been acting like I know what I want, but I don't really know what I want. And I kind of thought it had to do with, I still perform, singer. But that was like, I used to think it was all going to come from the job or my profession. I thought that was going to give me all of the satisfaction, and it didn't. And it was really upsetting and scary. And so passion, when that word, I think about what that means. I mean, I think of the passion of Christ, and that's being crucified on a cross. And there's a lot of pain in that. And there's a lot of, it's also this beautiful thing too. But I think that there's a whole lot to explore there, Sahar, in terms of of finding your passion and what really turns you on. And I think it'll come from you experimenting in your communications, like you're doing with your friendships, and you're making deeper connections there. And I think that's a part of your passion. Is that accurate?
I think so. Yeah, I'm a very people-oriented person, and that's part of the issue with my job, is that my job is very technology-oriented. And so I don't necessarily see the connection between what I do on a daily basis and having any sort of people connection or impact on people.
Do you have contact with people?
I do. Yeah, I'm in meetings all the time with people who are always talking about technology problems. And I don't necessarily see the direct connection or impact that solving those has on people's emotions and, how people are doing and so forth. So, it's a big disconnect in my mind.
That is a really big challenge, Sahar. That's a really big challenge.
Yeah.
As things are more and more complex. Now, how about you making meaningful connections with the people you're in meetings with?
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I don't think it gives me the same satisfaction as actually, seeing that my daily work is somehow improving someone's life, having that direct sort of impact on another person. That's definitely missing, and that's definitely a core part of what I'm passionate about. So yeah, that's part of what kind of got me thinking that I need to make a change in the type of work that I'm doing. So
well, it sounds like you know that, and that you're, are you starting to look at other companies?
I did for a while, and then I kind of started interviewing, and then I realized that I was interviewing for very similar jobs to what I have now, and then I stopped because I just felt like, all of my interviews I was coming across as like very disinterested. It was very obvious that I was just going through the motions. So, I didn't really get second interviews. I did a lot of first interviews or like screening calls, but I wasn't necessarily able to convey why I'm interested in the job because I was just kind of applying to things
Because you
blindly.
weren't.
Yeah, yeah. But I
Okay.
am working with I have been working with a coach for a while now. It's been about a year. And there are, I guess, things that I'm doing there, but I just don't really feel like I'm necessarily making the progress that I would have liked to make by this point. Like I don't really have a clear direction of where I'm heading for.
Okay. Sahar, if there's any way you can jump into the event tomorrow evening,
Okay.
do it. Beyond Positive Thinking with Jillian Eichel. There's a way for you to just dive in deep and get to know yourself more.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That because my sense is that there's a way that just in that where you're looking outside, and it's really it's both and we need the outside stimulus to give us new ideas and to excite us, but there's also a learning more about ourselves and what matters to us that has to be happening too. And I think that's kind of you know that there's more that you want, and you're looking for the connections on how to make that a reality.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great investigation.
George, one question here.
Yeah.
The situation that Sahar is into, partially I can relate to what she is into in terms of the transition she wants to make, where she can enjoy more, where she's passionate to do things about more. But I have got one fear here. She mentioned she also got 10 plus years of experience. In my situation, I got almost 18 plus years of experience. Passion, enjoyment, fun, all at right place, and it's important. But at the same time, there are family commitments, there are financial commitments. So in the pursuit of the role or a profile which is exciting, and perhaps I have done that part of the role only for 3 years in last 18 years. So somebody is going to look at me, might not be giving me, or he is bold enough to give me that kind of role, might not get a senior role. I may have to start somewhere below. I may have to compromise 1 or 2 steps down and start the role. That fear of compromise is hard.
Yeah, totally. And I suspect, I mean, one of the we'd have to actually have a session to dig in on this, both Sahar and Tushar. But very often, if you take a step back like that, if one of your deep yearnings is to make a difference and kind of do what you came here on earth to do, taking a step back like that is probably going to set you back seriously in terms of the overall impact you can make in the world. And so I suspect that there's challenges with a position where you're at that you might not even be aware of, that you might not be allowing yourself to see that you could actually face that, that you could actually take on something that would be really challenging and exciting, but it might trigger the limiting belief, oh, I'm not enough. That's too much. I could make too much of a change. And this ties back to the Marianne Williamson quote, that our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, but that we're powerful beyond belief. And that kind of rings true for all human beings. And so I encourage you to really look at that, both of you, around what is possible right where you're at. That if you just said, well, Sahar, it's a little different because you're currently working, but what is it that I could go for here that is absolutely, it would be thrilling and a total challenge and also very satisfying. And I'm trying to think of a story with somebody that can relate to this. So I'm going to take it to a musician. A drummer comes in, he's very amazing drummer and can play Frank Zappa's Black Paper, which is basically there's so many drum hits in it that the whole paper is just black. So an insane piece. And he's talking about, oh, I just want to be on the edge of like making great music. And I want people to enjoy it. I want there to be lots of people enjoying it, but nobody cares. Like it's like I play at these little venues, these jazz places downtown Chicago for other musicians, and everybody's jaded. There's no money in it. Nobody cares about good music. And this is, it's like there's not going to be a whole lot of a career there. And so he was asked, well, who's your favorite drummer? And he named some guy from a country in Africa. He's like, okay, well, who do they play for? Oh, they play community events, weddings, etc. And he's like, okay, well, so how is it that you're not doing that here in Chicago, where you could be having a fantastic career, playing for community events, weddings, etc. And they were like, yeah, but it wasn't their idea of cool, of who they were. But then when they looked at it based on their values, what you were talking about, Tashar, and saying, oh my gosh, yeah, how about it? And I am uncomfortable. And can I run a business at that level? Here, I thought I was just going to be a musician. I just wanted to be cool and get that attention. But I don't know if I can handle all of that. But they're like, that does sound thrilling. And I certainly know it will make more money likely, unless I become a world famous jazz drummer. But that's significantly challenging. There's a lot of amazing jazz musicians that make nothing. So he goes on and just starts taking the next steps and engaging in that, develops a phenomenal business and is now helping musicians. He's actually helping jazz musicians like himself make a real living, supporting families that they might not have even gotten the chance to have without this, and playing fantastic. They have revolutionized the wedding band industry, and have even taken on coaching people getting married and saying things like, well, what's most important to you? And, oh, do you want to spend, $100 a plate on food, or do you want to have an amazing dance party? And really being able to sort this stuff out. So anyway, it's a very relationship approach to developing myself in this format. So I hope that sheds, maybe sparks some possibilities about how to go at. There might be things right where you're at. This ties back to the guy who did the diamonds thing from Philadelphia. Oh, I'm so embarrassed I can't remember his name. But basically the whole story is, and same thing with the Paulo Coelho's pilgrimage, is that oftentimes right where you're at is incredible value. But given our way of seeing the world, we can't see it. And so we want to find ways to challenge our viewpoint right where we're at, so that we start to be able to see more data and take in more. So that's my challenge to everybody. Beyond Positive Thinking Thursday night with Jillian, that she'll be going into, you'll make the connection there, and in using all of your feelings, oftentimes things that we think of as negative, but learning how to use that instead of just pretending like it's not there. So I hope this has been helpful. This has been incredibly engaging for me. I really appreciate all of your questions, and those of you who jumped in and shared your successes. And, part of this, I really appreciate the way that you're grappling with it, Tushar and Sahar, on what's important to you, making sure that your job is something that's nourishing and satisfying to you and a space for you to really grow. So everybody, thank you for joining in. Anna, good to have you. I'm so glad you could jump in briefly. We'll talk soon. I know we're talking on, I think it's Friday. I'll check my phone, but great to have you on, and many blessings to you down in Bogota. Take care. All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thank you,
We'll
George.
see you again.
Thank you,
Thanks.
George.
Thanks.
Bye, Janet.
Goodbye, everybody.